cheating a little bit, but hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Sneha and welcome to the July wrap-up. To say that this video is a bit late is an understatement. It's mid-August now, but it is what it is. I had to take a break for a few weeks for some reasons, and that's why this is going up this late. But anyway, let's just get started. So again, July has been an okay month for me in terms of reading. I read 5 books and all of them have been fiction books. Again, not so much in terms of quantity of books, but again, I've read some great books in this month, and a couple of them might just be my forever favorites. I don't know, maybe too early to tell, but I really loved the books that I've read. Let's just talk about each book that I read in July 2022. The first book that I finished was The Glass Palace by Amitav Ghosh. I am so happy that I finally got to read a Amitav Ghosh book in this year. This is my first one in this year. I talked about this author in one of my shorts videos, but he is one of my favorite authors ever. This particular book is a historical fiction novel. It is set in India, in Burma and Malay. So basically it's India, Myanmar and Malaysia, modern day Myanmar and Malaysia, and this spans from the Third Anglo-Burmese War until the end of the Second World War. So it's more than a century that we are covering in this book, and it starts in Burma when the last king of Burma is kind of exiled from Burma and he's sent to India in Ratnagiri in Maharashtra, and then we follow the history of each of these countries until the Second World War, and how the state of affairs was under the British rule. There are characters in this book. We do follow a couple of families, kind of influential, prominent families of these countries as we move through history. But really, the characters only serve as viewpoints for us. The historical context is the main star of this book, and that's honestly the reason I love Amitav Ghosh's historical books, because there's absolutely no one who can write historical fiction like he does. I mentioned this in my previous video as well. It feels like you are viewing history from your own eyes rather than, just reading about characters who are witnessing that particular history. And what I absolutely loved about this book is that it made me cognizant to so many facts and so many historical events that either I did not know or I knew and I've completely forgotten. And when I was going through them via this book, I was just so fascinated by the history of Burma especially, that I was just reading up after the book was done, during the book was done, on all the real life events that happened. One very interesting perspective that this book offered was during the Second World War, when Indian soldiers were made to fight for the British. India was never in the war. The British made us enter the war for their purposes, and there's this entire conversation and this entire perspective given in this book about how Indian soldiers felt about it that way, how eventually there was a section of the Indian army which revolted because they really did not want to fight the war of the British. Like, when you are a soldier, you're fighting for the honor of your country, right? That is the entire nature of your job. But in this case, your country is not the one which is at war. You're fighting for your masters essentially. So there's this entire debate going on about whether the Indian army at that particular point of time were mercenaries or were they soldiers, both of them being very different from each other. So that perspective, I think, was one of my favorite parts about this book as well. So overall, I just loved how this book showed a part of history that really is forgotten. I mean, there's a lot of focus given on Indian history under the British rule. We kind of always forget that our history was very closely interlinked with Burma and Malay and other colonies of the British crown. So yeah, absolutely loved this book. I rated this 5 stars out of 5. And I finished an ebook which I was reading, which is Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason. I think this was shortlisted for the Women's Prize of this year, and I heard a lot of booktubers and bookstagrammers rave about it, so that's why I ended up reading it on Scribd. The main protagonist of this book is a woman called Martha. She is approaching her 40th birthday, and Martha has never been alright. Like, there has been something wrong with her since her teenage years, and she's never been able to get a diagnosis for it. But it often gives her a lot of mental health problems, even leads to her having suicidal tendencies, but nobody's ever been able to give her a diagnosis. After her 40th birthday, she finds herself divorced. She's back in her parents' house, and she gets handed a diagnosis finally, and it completely changes her life. This book is a very, very, very poignant, heart-touching, very difficult to read book, because we are told the story entirely from the perspective of Martha, and just how much she suffers with her issues, with her mental health problems, and how much it impacts her interaction with the environment, be it her husband, be it her family, be it her friends, be it with her job, like all of the normal social interactions that you would have as a human being, how much she suffers because of her mental health situation, and how she really never gets that help from mental health professionals. A lot of these issues I think will resonate with everybody, because I'm sure everybody must have felt that something is wrong with me, I'm not fitting in, but I can't really vocalize what is wrong with me. So in that aspect, I think it really tries to destigmatize the conversation and really help understand how important research is needed for mental health, because there's just so much that we still don't know about the human brain, and millions of people across the globe are suffering because of it, because they are not really handed diagnoses and help and resources to help them in their mental health situation. So yeah, this book was really an eye-opener, and just some of the perspective that Martha as a character offers was very enlightening, I think. This book is definitely a must read. I really loved reading it, and I rated it 4.5 stars out of 5. Then I finished another very similar book. This is M and the Big Whom by Jerry Pinto. This is an Indian historical lit fic novel. It is set in Mahim, Bombay, and it follows the life of a 4-member family called the Mendeses. Sure. The mother, Imelda, is someone who is a manic depressive, so she has the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, and we are told the entire story from the perspective of her son. He narrates the entire story. So we follow how, the parents met, how they fell in love, how they got married, how they have kids, and then their life in a 1-bedroom apartment together. Again, one of those books I think is very important for people to know about and to read about, just for them to empathize better with people in a similar situation, and to just destigmatize the entire conversation, particularly because this is set in India and it is set in a middle class family. It could just be anybody that you know and love. It could be your family, your neighbors, your friends, anybody literally, and that's why I think it hit a lot closer to home for me. It hit a lot closer to the bone for me almost. You particularly feel for Imelda a lot in this book, because you can't help but falling in love with her the way her son portrays her in this book, because he of course loves her, but he's also kind of burdened with the responsibility of making sure that she's okay when she's in one of her high highs or the low lows phases, but there's so much empathy given to the treatment of the woman in this book that it hurts your heart. It really hurts your heart. It breaks your heart, but it also warms your heart. And I just loved reading this book. I can see why the author is such a celebrated author, and I really want to read more and more of him. I think I read somewhere that this book was kind of based on Jerry Pinto's own life. His mother also had a lot of similar problems, and you can tell. And only after reading that I could really see that it was evident a little bit, because the entire book is written with so much pain and love at the same time that it really, really breaks your heart, but it also, I loved it. So I did rate this book again 4.5 stars out of 5. Then the next book that I finished was Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I filmed a book haul a few weeks ago where I went out and bought some of the hyped books, and this was top on that list. It is a historical book inspired by Shakespeare's son, whose name is Hamnet. Now Hamnet passes away at age 10 or 11 because of an illness, and we kind of are told the entire story from there on. We're also of course told about how Shakespeare met his wife, how they fell in love, how they got married, how they had kids, how they how Shakespeare came to be the person that he is and the entire backstory of it. But the amazing and the best part about this book is that it completely defocuses the attention on Shakespeare. I mean, he is a world famous playwright, right? People would pick up the book for him, but he's only referenced to in the entire book as the father or the husband or the son. Never is his name deliberately written on this book, and I think that really worked because it made the other characters, it made the other people in his family really shine out, particularly his wife. Now his wife's name in real, I think, was Anne Hathaway. It was either Anne or Agnes. There's always been a debate about it, and in this book her name is Agnes, and she is someone who has a few mystical powers. Like, she's like a healer, and you know, people flock to her for spiritual advice for any kind of wounds or any kind of pain that they're in, and she gives them remedies. So yeah, the entire family, reading about the entire family was just so fascinating for me. And because this is a historical novel also, it really, the atmosphere is created in such a way that you are in that, you know, small town in England. Because what also happens in real life and in this book is that Shakespeare leaves his family in the small town where they grew up to go to London and get established as a playwright there. So actually his wife and his children never really go to London to live with him and never really get to experience that side of his fame. They live in the town, and after the son passes away, they really don't want to go to London also, so they just stay behind, and Shakespeare comes down back and forth whenever he has some time. So I loved this book. I think I just could not put it down. I think I read it in 2 or 3 days, I think, which has not happened in a long time with me. And I absolutely love it when I read books that I can get, like, you know, immersed in and only emerge hours later and be a little disoriented. That's the kind of book that this is for me. And I love the portrayal of Shakespeare's wife in this book. Really loved this. I rated this 5 stars out of 5. And then the last book that I finished in July was House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende. This book was also featured in my my predicted 5-star reads video. That was the last video I'd filmed. I'll link that up above if you haven't checked it already. And I think in that book I said that I think that this will be a 5-star read. And has it been a 5-star read? This again is a historical novel. Clearly there's been a trend in the month of July for me, and this is set in an unnamed Latin American country. And in this book, one of the protagonists is a girl called Clara, who as a young child loses her sister, and the day she loses her sister, she becomes mute. Like, as choice, she doesn't talk until she turns 18, when she announces that she will get married to her sister's ex-fiance. His name is Esteban, and he's a much older gentleman who is complete opposite to Clara. Clara is someone who's very sensitive. She also has some mystical powers, and she regularly exercises them. And she's also someone who's very frail, very delicate. She's been a spoiled princess all her life. And Esteban is like a brute force of a man who's, you know, kind of making his own destiny by creating a plantation. He's not very nice to people that he really doesn't like. So anyway, Clara and Esteban get married, and the entire novel is about their marriage and their eventual, you know, old age, and what happens when one of them passes away and all of that. Oh my god, this book is action packed. I mean, not action in the sense of like fighting action. There's just so much which happens in this book. There's like the politics of the country also serves as a very important plot point in this book. What happens with the characters, what happens with side characters, the interaction with characters between side characters. There's war, there's disease, there's mystical elements, there's magical realism. There's just so much happening in this book. It's very entertaining because of that. It is a book that you read, I think, in tranches. It's not a book that you sit down and read at a go like some of the other books of the month have been. I read this over a period of time, and I think that's how you are meant to enjoy this. It's like a good, you know, like a TV series almost, and I loved it. I think Isabel Allende as a writer to me, and as a writer of, again, historical novels to me, I think she is amazing at it. She just sets the scene so vividly once again. And again, this is a country that I really know nothing about. I think it's Chile. I'm not too sure. And I don't really know too much about Chile anyway. But it's just painted so amazingly. Feel like I will read Isabel Allende more and more. I think she'll be one of those authors that I'm very keen to explore the backlist of. So yeah, I rated this 4 stars out of 5. Those are all the books that I read in July 2022. Clearly you could see a trend, right? I mean, it's either historical novels or it is books on mental health. So a bit of an intense reading month for me, for sure. The best book of 2022 July for me is probably a tie between Hamnet and The Glass Palace. I cannot choose one. I really loved both of these. Talking about my least favorite book. Now, I've ranked every book 4 stars and above. There's no least favorite book. I don't know. Can I pick any? No, I really can't. I really can't pick a book, a least favorite book out of anything that I've read in this month. So I'm going to leave it blank. So yeah, there is no least favorite book for this month. Feel like I'm like cheating a little bit, but it's okay. It's my game. I can make up the rules. Yeah, anyway. So yeah, that's it for this video. Please like, share, comment, subscribe if you're still around, and it'll mean the world to me, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.